A couple of people have alluded to coaching in the past, and when 20 years or so ago I did a lot of corporate outplacement, and occasionally one of my clients would come to me and say, you know, we've got this guy that's kind of one foot on a banana peel and the other one out the door. Is there anything you do to help him? And well, I think we've all watched the profession emerge in the last decade or two, where it's really become an integral part of many organizations, adult learning, and their succession management and their learning strategies. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And we've moved from, and there's still a lot of what I call linear coaching. So you have a set of competencies and you're trying to move an individual from this competency level to another competency level. So either help them perform better in the job that they're in, or perhaps groom them for another role. I think there's another thing that's taking place, and I see this quite a bit in my practice and the consulting that I do, where companies are looking at more transformation, particularly in high potentials or executives at the most senior level, where you've got a merger and acquisition, you've got globalization, you've got something really important that's mission critical to the organization. So people are, and this ties into, I think, to our conversation about globalism today, and that the issues are too complicated, too complex to simply move from, you know, one basic level of competency to another is maybe insufficient. So, and you see a lot of this in the literature. And transformative is something is moving beyond linear. So a significant change or transformation. I think Mike Eritz earlier today used the term the whole self. So we tend to look at now individuals, and this is as the whole self in a coaching process. I think if somebody familiar with, anybody familiar with integral theory, Ken Wilber and Claire Graves and Don Beck, and to a lesser extent maybe Bob Keegan at Harvard University. So, you know, once you looked at human development as kind of linear. You go back to Piaget, and a child at 6 months did this, and a year did this, and 18 months did this. And I think we tended to look at adult development from the same lens. What we're thinking now is it's not just a linear development that we're looking for, but it's growing, it's getting bigger. So if you think about the individual as a sphere, and within, if those of you familiar with integral theory, you know that there's 4 quadrants and 4 levels. So, and you're looking at individuals more from a balanced perspective. So, and I think this ties in well with some of the other comments been made here earlier today. We're looking at the physical aspects of the individual, we're looking at the emotional aspects, the intellectual, the knowledge aspects of the individual. So it's not simply enough anymore to move, particularly at the individual level, executive level, or at the high potential level, to think about linear development. I think you've got to look at individual growth more as the individual getting bigger, getting larger, taking on more. And if any of these quadrants are out of balance, the growth is inhibited, right? You can't, if you're physiologically not healthy, you can't grow intellectually, or your intellectual growth, your emotional growth is going to be impeded. So it's looking at an individual from a total perspective. And we see this, one of my clients, CompuCom Systems, we have 18 people in a high potential program. We're in our 3rd class now. And what I see is about 1/3 of the group, we'll have about 6 people who are really kind of looking at this as a skill development. You know, I want to get better at communication and presentation skills and all that, and I can advance in my career. Another 1/3 of the group really looks at it from a personal development perspective. You know, I want to get promoted. I want to grow. I want to go for another job. I want to get bigger. I want to be able to move in my career. But then about 1/3 of the people that we see will really look at it from a transformation. You'll see that, and we do our pre and post measures of people against a set of competencies, and you'll see, and then the other ways we measure the program, you'll see about 1/3 of that group will truly be transformed. They will be different. They will come to work, they'll present themselves differently, and they will have grown in a way that's sort of back to that integral perspective. They're really grown exponentially. So it's not just a linear process. I didn't know we were doing the TED thing today, so I'm kind of dependent on my notes. But and I think it's important to think about coaching as a coach as a teacher. And if you think about what goes on, how many people in here have actually experienced coaching? Wonderful. Awesome. Boy, I didn't know that. That's pretty good, Mark. So those of you that experienced it, you've experienced what would probably be a fair analogy would be a Socratic learning process, right? So there's the coach has presence, congruence, act. These are core competencies of the International Coach Federation, by the way. These are things that we're measured on as we seek accreditation. But presence, congruence, active listening, powerful questions, confrontation, integration. That's what coaches do. By the way, that's kind of what teachers do. Jarvis, Holland, and Griffin, three prominent researchers in the field of education, say teachers may play several roles. Some of these roles are provide information on certain topics, serve as a resource for the individual, assist learners to assess their needs and competencies, locate resources, secure new information, set up new learning experiences, work with learners as a sounding board for ideas, and help learners to develop a positive attitude towards learning and self-directed behavior. Coaches do these things. So I think those of you that are in the process of evaluating coaching for your organization or even evaluating individual coaches, think about coaching as a teaching process, as an adult development, adult learning process. Well, one of the things Mike talked about earlier today that I thought was pretty interesting, meaningful conversations. Meaningful conversations. And that's really what coaching should be about. And through those meaningful conversations, you'll have those transformative learning experiences. Coaching challenges fixed assumptions. It is a process to generate beliefs and opinions that will provide justification, guide action. We all come into the world with our frameworks and our frames, and one of the things that coaching should be doing is to help challenge those frameworks, and particularly I think this is very important in the global world, because we have cultural frameworks, we have gender frameworks, we have educational frameworks, we have family of origin frameworks, we have, gosh, how many? We all bring those into the conversation. So expanding those frameworks, challenging those frameworks, and helping people make better decisions. I'll give you a couple examples. I had a SVP of sales for $1 billion media company who all of the executives at the company were offered coaching, and that was just part of what he was expected to do. And so I was assigned to him, and so he came into the conversation, well, I'm not sure really what we're going to be coaching about. And so we looked at his, he had data 360 and individual assessments. We looked at all that, and there were some gaps here. And I said, well, what's your future with the company? He said, well, I don't know, but my boss keeps telling me that maybe I should be getting ready for chief operating officer position. I said, you think that might be something we want to coach about? So, and we did, and that became the coaching assignment, was working with him to help prepare him for that position. But you see, without that coach there and asking that question, he didn't really even know that he had anything to be coached about. So for him, that was an event. Sometimes a transformational event, transformative event can be just that, just an event. Just breaking that framework and helping them see something that they didn't see before. I think there's a lot of theory around. We don't have time for that. We just have a couple minutes left. But transformational learning theory, critical, objective, and reflective thinking, and collaboration among peers, consensus building about individual reflections. That is a transformational learning process. That is a condition that can actually create a transformative learning experience for the individual. And Mark, I think we've got a couple more minutes for you to wrap up.